Alrighty, here we go, game number 2. So it looks like Ammi is going to be on the play. This is one of those matchups where it's just like play draw is probably less of a factor than some of the other matchups we've seen today. They're both decks kind of just want to do their thing and
just dirtle for a little while.
Yeah, exactly, and hopefully one of them comes out on top.
I imagine that like New Perspectives does want to go first, try to cast their New Perspectives as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like there's a lot of times where this, especially against control, the decks that you know have counter spells against you, your timing starts getting a little weird. You know, Ammi has a couple negates in the sideboard, and you know, does he bring them in and then maybe maybe wait until turn, till he has 8 mana to try his New Perspectives to maybe have a negate back up to see if to fight through a counter spell, because 6 mana is rough. It is a lot.
It is quite a bit, and especially if you're playing against any sort of control deck that's just going to sit there with open mana. But here comes the sideboard card.
Yes, exactly. But instead we see a spicy one, Drakehaven. You know what? Maybe you just don't need New Perspectives when you can just cycle and make some make some 2/2 flyers. Those are a pretty quick clock in and of themselves. Granted, Dynavolt Tower might have a word with those drakes.
Ooh. Yeah, that would scare me a little bit. But I imagine maybe if you're the Temur Tower deck, you take out 1 or 2, shave some of your 4 Dynavolt Towers because your opponent isn't playing a lot of creatures that you can wipe with it. But
yeah, I'm also guessing we're probably going to see very similar sideboard strategies almost every game from Orlando, just deciding into the creatures just because they're very difficult to deal with.
And just because your opponent maybe isn't expecting them. And I think sometimes that is more of an edge than what you would typically need. But we see the cast out coming down and going onto the Tireless Tracker. Don't want that to give you any sort of card advantage or...
Do you feel good in Orlando's spot that the cast out hit the Tireless Tracker, or does it feel bad?
Hard to say. I mean, assuming that he went into this creature plan, it doesn't feel too bad. Like, that cast out came down on a Tireless Tracker as opposed to maybe like my Bristling Hydra or I guess something else. But I mean, I imagine that your opponent is playing 4 cast out. And so I would still be a little worried of the other 3, but I definitely don't feel too bad. And especially like this Cub is going to come down and that Cub can get out of hand.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's similarly kind of mixed feelings. Like, oh man, Tireless Tracker is such a good card advantage. It's like, one of the best green card advantage engines in Standard. Just play your land, draw some cards. That's great. But the fact that Ammi had to spend 4 mana to answer your 3 mana threat feels pretty good being up in that exchange. And the fact that you were able to follow it up with some sort of threat. I would be a little bit worried though about this Drakehaven, because at any moment we already know that Ammi's playing multiple of the single mana cyclers.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Assuming he's got 2 of those in hand, he can create 2 drakes right now. Possibly, nope, still it's only 2 drakes because he would
only
need
2. Yeah,
yep.
He'd need more mana.
Yeah, but next turn possibly 3 drakes. And the crazy thing with this deck is you really don't know how long they're going to be able to chain off the Drakehaven, just because cyclers are the whole point of the deck is the cycler draws into more cyclers.
Exactly. So here we go. He's going to start to cycle the Vizier of Tumbling Sands and untap.
And speaking of,
and make a Drake.
Well, I guess that's one way that you can create possibly 3 drakes this turn.
Yeah, you're right. I guess if he did 2 Viziers, he could maybe do 3. No, just the 1. Still okay.
And then possibly another cycler here.
Oh, I guess he's still on his insta.
Yep.
Gonna look at his cards. Maybe. Do I want to
decide? Do I want to cycle again, or do I want to try and play for Shadow of the Graves?
I maybe would, just because Vizier is pretty important to the deck. But just gonna cycle a cycle land.
Yeah, makes sense. Just being able to get some amount of pressure. We saw, like, giving your control opponent just infinite time to be able to do things is eventually they're going to draw they're going to draw all of the answers to all of yours, and New Perspectives cost twice as much as the Disallow that you're using to counter it, so they're often ahead on this mana game. And putting a clock on them to force them to try and commit to the board and then maybe tap out. Whereas now you can land your new perspectives combo. You're golden at that point.
Exactly. And I think it's kind of feeling bad if you have to. Anytime you have to use a removal spell on a token, I feel like it feels kind of bad.
Oh yeah, it certainly does. But Drakehaven is gonna say, well, I'm gonna just create a bunch of these drakes at instant speed. You're gonna attack? You sure you want to? Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Just dumping all of the energy.
Yeah.
Into...
How do you feel about him pumping the Longtusk Cub not at instant speed?
It seems a little loose to me. You probably want to wait to see if there's anything that Ammi does. Mm-hmm. And maybe Ammi has a cast out in hand and doesn't want to take the damage. So instead of pumping, or before you pump, Ammi decides to cast out so you don't waste the energy. Whereas doing it main phase, you're just giving Ammi more information.
Exactly. So I feel like that might be one of the things where you see Orlando not having as much competitive play under his belt. But
yep. But I guess in this instance it kind of is working out because he's just did 6 damage.
He's got a 6/6 Cub.
Yes. But here we go. Ammi's at 7 mana now?
7 mana.
Or is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana?
Oh.
Yeah, that is a lot of potential drinks.
No new perspectives coming down.
No new perspectives. You don't... I feel like at this point in the game, you probably have some number of cyclers, at least one. There's not going to be a way for the Temur deck to give the Cub trample or anything like that. You make a Drake, sure, you chump it, and then you still have 4 power in the air every single turn. Currently it's a 4-turn clock, and odds are Ammi's going to be able to make multiple Drakes.
Yep.
So he's going to be able to accelerate the clock very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Ammi is definitely in the better position right now. Just having 2 flyers on the board that I don't really think Orlando can answer.
Mm-hmm. Additionally, we saw kind of Ammi's downfall was he didn't have enough pressure in the early game before. In game 1, and Orlando was able to counter some of the big things and kind of get ahead on mana. Like we said, Disallow only costs 3, Negate costs 2, New Perspective costs 6, whereas all of this can't really be interacted with absent a Disallow, and oh man, it would feel rough to disallow a Drakehaven activation when Ammi's just going to do it again.
Exactly, and all of his decks synergize with cycling.
Yes, exactly. And look at this, Ammi's already got a 2-turn clock. He was able to make 3 Drakes last turn. He's attacks for everything. Each one of those Drakes kind of replaced themselves, if you will, and he's probably got a grip full of cyclers, is going to be able to make at least a couple. Even if one of them's just a chump blocker.
That's all you need if your opponent only has 1 creature. And
yeah, exactly. He's facing, lethal over on Orlando's side. He's got a lot to do already at 4 points, 4 life left. That's just 2 Drakes.
Sweltering Suns.
Okay.
That'll hit those Drakes.
That's certainly an interesting keep, unless Orlando had the read that there's probably a Drakehaven or was thinking about this deck. I'm kind of surprised it's in the deck.
That stayed in?
Yeah.
I would imagine that you see it as, if they put in Drakehaven. I feel like at this point what does this deck do? Cycle, what's a really hyped card? Drakehaven, we'll keep in the Sweltering Suns. Worst case scenario, it cycles for me and I draw a card. Mm-hmm. And I mean, in this position, those Drakes got too close to the sun and they died.
Oh, poor Drakes. But I guess much like zombies, there's not really holding them back that much.
And they're just gonna rebuild.
Yes. I really like these kind of really crazy, outlandish build-around cards, whether it is New Perspective or Drakehaven. Oh, and it looks like going in for the blocker Ruski against the Longtusk Cub. Mm-hmm. So the Sweltering Suns got rid of the Drakes, but it did leave 3 damage on the Longtusk Cub.
Indeed.
And now we just have some more Drakes and more spinning some wheels.
No, I think that was a smart play. Make the 2 Drakes block at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. If there is any way, we don't see any other pressure otherwise besides the one Longtusk Cub, which Orlando's already devoted a ton of resources. Yeah, exactly. What, he had 4 counters on it, so that's 8 energy. And he's close to, it's just off screen, but I think he's at 0 energy currently.
Yeah, looks like it. And I imagine he's sitting on a bunch of counter magic in his hand that can't really counter the cycling that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked about it just a little bit, but oof, man, disallowing, that's rough. Look.
Sphinx of the Final Word.
Sphinx of the Final Word. Well, when you're playing against counter spells, having this big flying beater that says Super Nope is...
You wish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually even better. It's
not
worse.
Even nope.
Yeah, it's not even no. It's just like, don't even try.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And looks like
And
Orlando is super dead.
Goops it up.
Yep.
And then they go to the counter game 3.
Yeah. So looks like Drakehaven's a pretty strong card when you're doing a lot of cycling. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
And it's not really, again, you mentioned that it's once it's on the field, it's not really something that the counter deck, it would feel really bad to disallow Drakehaven
yeah, definitely.
activation. So I think that, yeah, especially in the counter matchup, that feels really good to just go Drakehaven. Okay.
So after seeing this game, how do you feel about the matchup a little bit more now that Ammi's kind of got a little bit more differentiated of a plan that kind of still, we talked about it a little bit. You don't want to side in too many things that take you off your main course, but I feel like Drakehaven is almost like it's complementary in that you can have them both, but they're not detracting from one another.
Yeah, I would agree. And my only concern is I think Ammi can take it if he can find one of his 2 Drakehavens.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think that, again, I do like the sort of creature aspect that the Temur Tower deck is going for post sideboard, and I think that they could possibly just take it if he can't find a Drakehaven to handle the creatures that he plays.
Yeah, he just has to make it through some of the initial counter spells and kind of just ramp out a little bit quickly, and hopefully, much like we've seen with some of the other matchups, just like present enough pressure and back that up with maybe some of the counter spells of his own, or being able to like overwhelm the counter spells to be able to get there.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
well, let's see what happens in game number 3.